Hey everybody, we're back with Ultimate X-Men issue number 2. This is going to be a short video as the story goes by very quickly. But a quick recap before we get into the plot. So the Ultimate Universe was created by the Maker, an alternate version of Reed Richards, who traveled to the past of Earth 6160 and prevented the heroes from gaining their powers, except for a select number who he turned into his secret council that governs the world. Ultimate X-Men so far takes place in the Land of the Sun, which is ruled by Sunfire, and the main character of the story is a young girl named Hisako, who in issue 1 survived a car crash due to unconsciously manifesting a red armor around her body. She also met a shadowy being who was going to take vengeance on the tormentors of Hisako's former friend, Tsubasa, who had taken his own life after being bullied. At the end of the last issue, Tsubasa's former coach had committed suicide, and by issue 2, 3 kids who had bullied Tsubasa when he was alive had also taken their lives. This issue opens with Hisako continuing to be tormented by the shadowy spirit and her memories of Tsubasa, who in a flashback, the two had decided to ditch school, and Tsubasa told Hisako that he wanted to ditch school permanently, and where she thought it was a cool kind of punk rock thing to do, it's only now that she realizes that this was sort of a call for help, that this was a sign that he was planning to take his own life, and she wishes that she could have done more. And for all the Naruto fans out there, tell me this doesn't look like a Sharingan eye. As Hisako is out getting eggs for her mother, she meets May, who is going to be later on known as May Storm, inspired by the character Storm Aurora Monroe, as May Storm also has weather-based abilities. But May recognizes Hisako as the girl who survived the car crash weeks earlier, and out of nowhere, Hisako decides to invite May to go to an abandoned building where she had been invited by the Shadow Spirit. So the two enter the building, and it's obviously haunted. Hisako sees shadowy spirits everywhere. They find these weird black blobs on the ground, and there seems to be a security guard for the building, though he also turns out to be either a manifestation of the shadow spirit, or the shadow spirit was simply manipulating the girls into seeing him that way. But as the shadow admits to having led to the death of the boys who had bullied Tsubasa, Hisako and May run for the exit, only for May to display her wind-based powers to try and blow away the shadow. Hisako is surprised by this, thinking that May was just a regular girl, but also demonstrates her own abilities when May isn't initially able to get rid of the shadow. Hisako, however, is successful, and we finally get a look at the actual person behind the shadow. And as I mentioned in issue 1, I believe that this is a version of the Shadow King. Now, typically, the Shadow King is a spirit that initially inhabited Amal Farouk in Egypt, but of course, this is a different universe, so it's likely that this is just the Ultimate Universe version of the Shadow King, and that the spirit, if it is a separate being, is inhabiting this young Japanese boy. And this does seem to be a teenager, probably about the same age as Hisako, surrounded by what looks like it could be spells or I don't know what. I don't read Japanese, so I don't know if this is just lazily written Japanese or if the artist just drew a bunch of squiggles to represent something. But the papers seem to function as a mechanism for this character to use his powers. Knowing that he's trying to get revenge for Tsubasa, it's possible that he was a friend of Tsubasa's, or he's also been bullied himself, and so he's basically trying to get back at all the bullies in his school. So perhaps these are like suicide notes or notes from the bullies to him and possibly to Tsubasa, and he's using them as kind of a token in order to enhance his abilities. Though it's odd because he doesn't seem to recognize who the girl is until after this encounter, despite the fact that he knew that she knew Tsubasa from beforehand, and he even gave her the little miniature armor that Tsubasa had given her before he took his life. So I'm not sure how he would have known about her or where to find her if he didn't know at least her name and face. But the day after is the high school entrance ceremony, and Hisako and May turn out to be in the same class. And so I believe it's at this school that we'll see a development of not just Hisako's character, but the X-Men and whatever characters make up that team. It's obviously a very different take on the X-Men. I like the art. However, I just think there's not enough happening in each issue. And so in a way that works like manga, where it's better to read it in a volume. But I think if they're going to do it that way, then they need to have just released Ultimate X-Men as trade paperbacks instead of releasing one issue at a time. I mean, there's no guarantee that the Ultimate line will last long enough for them to tell a satisfying story. We're still in the first few months of the Ultimate Universe. It may do poorly in the next year, and they decide to just cancel it. I get that Peach Momoko doing the writing and drawing for Ultimate X-Men makes it easier easier if her stories are shorter because she is able to complete the full issue each month rather than delaying. But she does need to pick up the pace a little bit. I think the pacing for this new Ultimate Universe is a little bit off. You don't see the same pacing among Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, and Ultimate X-Men. I mentioned in my review of Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 3 that the pacing is definitely odd for Jonathan Hickman. I do enjoy the story, but also I think issue 3 was a little too short. So hopefully if this line lasts long enough, once they get past the first 6 issues, things will start moving along a little bit quicker. The stories will start being a little more substantial. I mean, if you go back to the original X-Men issue number 1, the full original X-Men team was introduced. Xavier was introduced, the concept of the story was introduced, and even Magneto and what he was all about was introduced. So they introduced Xavier and the 5 original X-Men as well as the main villain all in the first issue. So I'm not saying that the Ultimate Universe has to catch up to the mainstream universe at this point in time and basically reveal all the mutants and all the other superhero characters, but I do think they did a better job of introducing characters back in the 60s. I'm not sure why they feel like they have to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, even the original Ultimate Universe kind of stuck to the original formula, and it worked. The Ultimate Universe was very popular for the first decade or so, and it did eventually start to fall off as they got rid of their original characters. But those are my thoughts on Ultimate X-Men issue number 2. Let me know yours in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.